Ike Ijeh is architect, author and head of housing, architecture and urban space at Policy Exchange. Thank you very much indeed for coming on the programme. I wonder what you make of clearly the anger at the MSG group about how they have been treated in all of this. Do you think that's fair, and what do you think that says about Britain?
Hello, Tom.
Hi.
Happy New Year. Yes, I have every sympathy with MSG, to be honest. And I can say that, obviously, as an architect, as you introduced me, I'm a local resident as well. I live 5 minutes from the road of the site. And look, I get the issues. I get it was a big entertainment venue. The light pollution issue is rather obvious, obviously. But look, we live in London. And I think you can also, what's really important to do, I think, is to separate the kind of personal opinion about the Sphere as a visual entity. Some people liked it, some people didn't. That's fair enough. No one opinion is more valid from the other. We can separate that from the planning process that got us here. And it's the planning process that's flawed, and that's what we really have to deal with and grapple with if we do want to invite big investments to this country, to give them the certainty and the confidence that we're going to carry through on proposals. So I think what's flawed here has been the planning process.
Interesting. So put the idea of what was being built to one side for now, and on the process itself. I said that Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, rejected the application back in November, but it was given initial approval, I think, by a different body. Is that right?
Yes, it was. That's right. The London Development Corporation, the company that oversees, the London Legacy Development Corporation, is a company that oversees a kind of post-Olympic development on the site. They approved it last year. Right. And as well as that, in 2018, when the plans were first proposed, Khan welcomed it. He said it'd be a world-class entertainment venue and a boost to London's nighttime economy. Now, look, at the end of the day, you have to give people who want to invest in London and use our planning process, all planning has to do is just give them two things, vision and certainty. You have to give them those. Now, at the beginning of the process, you had Khan gushing over it. You had people saying this would be a wonderful addition to London. 5 years later, the opposite's now the case. So what's changed? Where's the certainty? Where's the risk avoidance in a process when you cannot have any confidence that the political information or material you're being given is going to be consistent? And ultimately, the reason why I sympathise with MSG's position, they basically withdrawn. They said, we're done with this, we're fed up, we don't want to be a political football. It's because, fair enough, Khan has made a decision to reject it. The Secretary of State is going to review that decision during a public inquiry, but it's still going to come down to one man's opinion. And that's not the way to run a city. We need a planning process that can do what it's supposed to do.
Isn't the change that's happened between the original, happiness about the idea to now, the fact that there has been this report commissioned by the Mayor of London's office that have said, look, there's real problems with this, significant adverse effects on people like yourself who live nearby, that residents would be, quote, very much aware of its presence, well, obviously, because it's massive, but that people might feel like a prisoner in their own home. I wonder what you make of the process of doing all that and then what it says.
But the process is a very familiar one. It's familiar to me as an architect, to be familiar to many people who've engaged with their local planning authorities. You get outline kind of permission or opinions, and then you get more detailed reports done in order to really flesh out the impact of a proposal. So I get that, and I get how that through that process of more detail being made available, opinions can be modified and opinions can change, etc. But as you said earlier, what strikes me about the changes here is that they seem more emotive than substantive. In 2018, it was fully known that this would essentially be a gigantic light bulb. It was fully known that people would live around it. What's changed since then in order to make what was known in 2018 acceptable, unacceptable today? That's the issue, and that's what I'm talking about with the lack of certainty that we can have with the planning process. Everything that's been said today could have been said 5 years ago.
Isn't the reality that it would be very difficult for a politician to have a report that said this is going to affect residents? It's going to be very hard with lots of residents campaigning to see its building blocked. Very hard for any politician to make the argument to say, one, this is going to benefit you, two, this is going to benefit a lot of people, that this is the right thing to do. It's easier to say no, isn't it?
It would be hard for a politician, but that's why politicians shouldn't really... The planning process is a quasi-political process. It's supposed to be done on planning rules, on evidential rules and guidance and regulations that are in place regardless of the politician making the decision. That's what this should have been based on. Yeah. And that's why I think MSG are so annoyed with this process, because it seems, I mean, the rules haven't changed in the past 5 years, but the kind of political interpretation, the political impetus for interpreting those rules, that does seem to have changed. And I think that's the problem. And also, just one quick point about, I understand, obviously I live locally, I understand the resident opposition to the sphere, but I think we've got to be a bit critical about this. Everybody who moved to Stratford would have known it was the site of the Olympic Games. It's a site that accommodates thousands of people. You've got the third biggest stadium in London right opposite the sphere. You've got what used to be the biggest shopping centre in Europe on the other side. This is a place that is not used to hosting large amounts of people. So I think there's got to be a degree of compromise. I think that if we're attracted to London, we can't then come to London or come to these sites and then dismantle the things that kind of attracted us in the first place.
Great to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming on. Ike Ijeh, architect, author, head of housing architecture and urban space at Policy Exchange.